Hey, you guys. Welcome back. This is Richard Sachs. I'm your host on Lost Arts Radio, and we have the return of a guest that I really enjoyed many times in the past, Dr. Gabriel Cousens. And you may remember that he is the author of quite a few books, Conscious Eating, and There is a Cure for Diabetes, and a lot of other great books. And has a retreat in southern Arizona where there have been a lot of great events happening, and he had a video, a short movie called Simply Raw, which is great for people that are wondering about what's the truth about diabetes, officially an incurable disease that he's shown that's not entirely accurate, to put it mildly. And a really great example for other doctors of that it is possible to be a really conscious medical doctor, get through the training, and still have common sense and wisdom intact. And so it is possible, and he's been sharing with us insights into not just lifestyle and physical bases of health and disease and how they work and how to get your quality of life back, but also deeper spiritual aspects. And that the point is not only physically being healthy, but that sets the stage for your real work, which is more internal and potentially a powerful effect on the outside world, which is actually very much needed right now. So because Dr. Cousens has this wider awareness, he's aware also of things going on in the outside physical world, the one they call the real world, where they're trying to block our regaining of our real state and our true potential. One of those things being all of them fitting together in one overall agenda, but one of the spokes of that wheel that's really important and time sensitive right now is the program to roll out what they call 5G and the intensification of the wireless transmitting devices in general. And so we're going to start talking about that and why it matters, what insights he has on it, kind of go over what the situation is with it right now, what's planned and what can be done, things that he's learned since we've talked to him last. So welcome, Dr. Cousens. Thanks for fitting us into your schedule. I really appreciate it very much.
Well, Richard, it's always a delight to work with you. So it's the pleasure goes both ways.
Yeah, I agree.
So this is about the heavens and earth, because 5G disrupts that connection between the heavens and earth. So I'm going to do a little prayer, which is about the healing of the heavens and the earth and the heart and the mind. Here it goes. It's in Hebrew. L'shem Yikud Kudashah Barihu Ushenate Bi'ilo Imolaya Chimyuke Pavavke Bida Shalom B'Shem Kozreo Kolam. Amen. So feel that merging within yourself, reintegrating the heart and the brain. Okay. Oh, now we're going to talk a little bit about 5G, and there's parts of it that are just so obvious that this is not really a good thing. So I'm going to read a few quotes. This is by Dr. Martin Paul addressing the National Institute of Health.
Right.
The 5G rollout is absolutely insane. So it's not like, right? It's a very clear statement.
He should come out and say what he thinks, right?
And then this is by Professor Trevor Marshall, Director of Autoimmunity Research Foundation, California. Allowing this technology to be used without proving its safety is reckless in the extreme, as the millimeter waves are known to have a profound effect on all parts of the human body. And just one more quote, because it's so interesting. The plans to beam highly penetrative 5G milliwave radiation at us from space must surely be one of the greatest follies ever conceived by mankind. There will be nowhere safe to live. And this is Olga Sheehan, a former World Health Organization employee and author of the book No Safe Space. So it kind of sets the tone of how the discussion goes. It's like, okay. And at this point, here we are in September 2019, about 33,000 scientists have signed, and I'm talking about doctors and physicists and so forth, have signed what they call the International Appeal to Stop 5G on Earth and in space. So it's not like people are being ignorant, not like we're saying is kind of off the wall. It really has a lot of scientific validity to say this is a extremely dangerous technology on a variety of ways. Now I'm going to try and explain that, because I just want to read what they said. This is the 33,000 scientists. We, the undersigned scientists, doctors, environmental organizations, and citizens from all these different countries, at least 41 different countries, urgently call for a halt to the deployment of 5G wireless network, including 5G from space satellites. Because there's a little debate, is there 400 or 500 already put up? Is there 10,000 put up? The goal is put 20,000. And they're not being put up randomly. They're being put in a particular place to disorganize things, which I'll explain in just a minute.
Okay.
So on top of the 2, 3, and 4G networks for telecommunication already in place, radio frequency radiation has been proven harmful for humans and the environment. The deployment of 5G constitutes an experiment on humanity.
So it's not like the 1G through 4G is good and 5G is bad.
No,
right?
It's just 5G is 100 times worse.
Okay, got it.
But there's about 25,000 studies showing 2G, 3G, and 4G are not particularly good, but they're not at the magnitude this is. This is like a high-level disaster step, okay?
Okay.
So what they say is the deployment of 5G constitutes an experiment on humanity and the environment that is defined as a crime under international law. And when we get to the kind of a little bit in, it breaks 11 international treaties. 11 international treaties. So it's not a small thing.
Right.
And this, back in 2015, there were 215 scientists from 41 countries, called the Freiburger Appeal, signed by over 3,000 physicians, okay, communicating their alarm to the United Nations and the World Health Organization. So people are quite aware. And they stated that, quote, numerous recent scientific publications have shown that EMF affects living organisms at levels well below international and national guidelines. In other words, they set the mark really high, and we're already going over that. But in reality, safety should be set at a much, much lower mark, or let's say a higher level of safety. Okay?
Yeah.
So we're looking more than 25,000 peer-reviewed. Okay? So it's a pretty big deal. Now, the question first comes to you, well, are we totally insane? Are there motivations for doing this? Well, there are some motivations, and it would be unfair not to really say what the motivations are. Not that I support them, but we need to know what people are thinking. Right. First, it's about $12 million increase for the global economy. That's a pretty big start right there. Okay.
What's that number? What's the number again?
12 trillion.
Okay, that's quite, yeah. It's okay, like Tom Wheeler, FCC chairman, and the former chairman said, there's a hell of a lot of economic activity that's going to be developed, created by this, and that's damn important, he said.
And with the about 3.5 trillion to the United States, and about 22 million new jobs.
Right.
That's step one. Step two in the discussion is we're in a military contest with China. And basically, if we get the 5G first, we'll have military dominance. Now, I have a friend that came back from China yesterday, and they're saying on the billboards, they're really promoting that this is a great thing. Everybody should use 5G. So, it's going on not just in this country, okay?
Right.
And the third, which is kind of the worst, it's it's going to disrupt, it's going to be a worldwide and local surveillance system, and it will disrupt brain function. And that, how I'm going to just say it, is that there's a lot of evidence that it creates manic depressive, depression, increases suicide, anxiety. But I'm not talking about that. I am talking about that researchers showed that 5G technology, particularly linked with quantum computer physics, which is a new level of computer, you need 5G to do that, can actually create mind control. Mind can affect your emotions, it can create you in a rage, it can create you in passivity, it blocks you. Like so 5G and the 60 megahertz wave resonates at brain and heart frequencies. So it can actually dull your consciousness. Now, you already stated in the introduction, okay, pretty clearly, wow, folks, why are we here? And if we're here not to have the Internet of Things, it really doesn't add anything to our lives. Self-driving car, it doesn't add anything. But it makes a big subtraction. Subtraction is it limits consciousness, or it has the potential to limit consciousness.
Right.
That's a big deal, because we are here for only one purpose: to wake up and know God. However you define it, we're not talking about one religion. We're talking about to wake up and know the truth of who we are.
Right.
So it blocks that. Why? Well, because it makes you a slave of it. I mean, a free person who knows God is a problem. You can't enslave him.
Yeah, so that's really irritating.
That's the bottom line of this discussion, in a way. Okay, it's like, hey, this is an attempt to enslave humanity.
Right. And the Internet of Things is a big part of that needs 5G to be completed, right?
Yeah, and it's in the medical world we call risk-benefit. We're talking about super high risk, very little benefit. It's like, so what if my refrigerator speaks to me? Do I need that?
Right.
I need it to be surveilling me?
Yeah.
Do I need to try driving cars? And I don't think so. And so,
and the idea of risk-benefit uses the word risk, which kind of understates it, because it's actually damage benefit, right? Not risk. Risk implies that you might get away with it, some percentage.
Well, everybody's a little bit different physiology. We could call it damage benefit, but it's I'm going to tell you, it's funny, it's kind of humorous, but in really, risk benefit means medical damage risk. Okay, do you see what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
And I'm going to, at the end of the talk, share some technologies that will actually significantly minimize the potential of damage.
Okay, that'd be great.
Individuals. So that doesn't solve the whole problem. I understand that. At least we'll have, for people who are paying attention, some way to protect yourself and your house.
Right.
There's technologies out, and I'm working with. I don't think I'll mention names. Just say I'm working with people who are developing more powerful technologies to protect your home and your living space.
Okay, good.
Then I'm hoping we're having another major meeting in a few weeks, and I'm seriously hoping that this person will make this technology public. So we have some ways to protect our spaces, people who are paying attention, but we're a vast minority. That's the problem. It's a problem. Okay, so we have to live with the fact of that, and how do we protect the whole world? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what we're talking about here, is that, yes, a lot of people know this. Anyone who's a serious scientist knows there's big dangers, what to do, how to do it. But let's look at it. Now, I don't know how updated you are. I've heard that Tesla is going to launch 10,000 satellites. Other people say 600, 400. I don't know for sure, but they're launching them. Mm-hmm. And that's a concern. So let's go to the mergings of the heavens and the earth and the statement, because there's a bigger picture. Yes, there are health issues. But I'm going to talk about the Schumann resonance and the global electric circuit. I don't know how many of the listeners have really heard about that or understand it. Maybe you can clue me in if in your estimate. It's your audience.
Yeah, I would say in those words, almost nobody, and we should explain it for people that have no idea what you're talking about.
Perfect. Okay. So we'll start with the Schumann resonance. And that's, in a sense, the tuning fork resonance for all of life. And it is from the Earth's surface to about, it resonates with the ionosphere. But within the ionosphere, which is 31 miles to about 620 miles, that's the total ionosphere, there's a thing called the D layer, okay? And that's about 37 to 56 miles up. Why is that important? Because that's where they're launching the satellites, is into the D layer. Okay. They know just what they're doing. These people are not fools, and they're not ignorant. And to think that they're ignorant, like one of the quotes said, what did I say in the quote? You know, basically, greatest follies. This is not it's a folly in a bigger picture, but the people doing it are very intelligent.
Yeah, why? It's not like some kind of a little oversight or something.
Yeah, it's not like that. It's very clear thinking. Let's place these satellites in the D layer of the ionosphere, which will further disrupt it. So what's it disrupting? Okay, it is disrupting the tuning fork for all life, which is the Schumann resonance.
Let's make sure and define the D layer for because people don't know what that is.
D layer in the ionosphere. The ionosphere is 31 to 620 miles.
Okay.
Within that space, at 37 to 56 miles, is the D layer of the ionosphere.
Okay.
And it has to do with electron density. I don't want to get into high physics with it, but it's electron density, and there are various layers. And the Schumann resonance is resonating with the Earth's surface and the D layer.
Okay, so the D layer is the active component of the ionosphere as far as sharing energy back and forth with the Earth.
Yeah, and the Schumann resonance. So we have one other thing, which is I'm not so clear, but it's the electric resonance. Okay, global electric circuit.
Okay.
So Schumann resonance is 7.83 hertz.
Right.
Global electric circuit is kind of all the other kind of frequencies that are going on. So one is very specific, one is more general. One is electric, the Schumann resonance is electromagnetic. Those are other things. Mm-hmm. And it's the electromagnetic that really throws us off. They call it solar and geomagnetic activity, SGMA. But I'm just going to call it the Schumann resonance.
Yeah, that's fine. Right.
Easier to pronounce.
Yeah.
Okay. But we are talking solar and geomagnetic activity. That's what's being disrupted. Okay. And it's the tuning fork. Okay. For all of life. It's in essence, the heartbeat of the planet.
Right.
Okay. So once we kind of get the bigger point of this, and also at the D shell, we're also talking about an ultra low frequency and extremely low frequency signals, which I'll get to in a little bit because it makes sense in the bigger picture, but not at this moment.
Okay.
I think the important thing, really important thing, is the concept of Schumann resonance, which is different than just EMF radiation. We know EMF radiation is a problem, but I'm saying, hey, there's a bigger problem that's not being so well addressed. Schumann resonance, the tuning fork of all life on the planet. That's big. And particularly affecting your heart and your brain. So we kind of have to want to look at that. Now, some of the research, one person, Dr. Cherry, kind of points out that when the Schumann resonance goes above 7.83, really above 7.87, we start to have a decrease in melatonin secretion.
Okay.
Now, we're going to get into the more biochemical details, but it's important to understand that there's a real physiological basis to this discussion. That's
right.
what I want people to get. It's like,
yeah.
And again, people know this. It's really important. The people behind the 5G, they know this.
Yeah, this is not something that we are crazy to do. We are not doing it. There's specific people engineering the whole thing.
And they are well informed.
Yeah.
They're not dummies. They're very thoughtful.
Since you mentioned melatonin as a hormone, if for people that don't know what that is, why don't you tell them why it's important?
I'm going to explain it.
Okay.
It's a neurohormone, first, not just a hormone, that affects your mind. It affects all our circadian rhythms. So that's partly what brings us in alignment with the planet, our circadian rhythms, okay? Also, it's a super potent antioxidant. And melatonin is released at night primarily, and it enters the cell membranes and repairs DNA and decreases the oxidation that we all face every day, just naturally. So it is a super protective antioxidant, and when it's not working, there's a tendency for cancer. That's one of the big things. Tendency for diabetes, chronic fatigue, sleep disturbances, cardiac problems, reproductive problems, neurological diseases. Of course, I just mentioned DNA leading to cancer, increased rates of mortality, and increased arthritis, depression, suicide, miscarriage, what we call SAD, season affective disorder, schizophrenia, SID, sudden infant death syndrome, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. So we're talking a neurohormone. It's affecting our mental functioning and really our nervous system functioning, like Alzheimer's. Right. So it's a big deal. And this chronic fatigue, things, heart balances, and so forth. And I suspect that we need it to repair the mitochondria. And I see a lot of people with chronic fatigue from the normal amount of mitochondria in the brain cells is 3 to 5,000. The heart is 2 to 4,000. I'm seeing people at 300.
Whoa! Wow.
Okay, and these are people very chronically fatigued, and there are things we can do to build it up.
Yeah, I mean, at 300, they're kind of barely alive, right?
Well, they're in severe chronic fatigue.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm just letting people know, and particularly cancer is a big deal with low melatonin. It really is important, and in a way, I'll just say it for myself. I actually take melatonin at night. I don't need it to go to sleep. I fall asleep right away. Bang, I do it as a protection for all these things.
Okay.
Okay, and that's about not a whole lot, a few drops in our system. But my point is, it's a good thing, particularly when you travel a lot.
Right.
It helps reset your cycle. So those are many important things here. But decreasing melatonin is very damaging to the organism, and that's what I want to say. In that altered geomagnetic activity, Schumann resonance, is what sets it off. Okay. Now there are other things associated with it. I mentioned forgetfulness. I mentioned mental confusion. Look what we're seeing today.
Yeah.
Repetitive thoughts, which is obsessive compulsive, mood swings, depression, mania. Look at the crowds today. It's like, did people lose their mind? What's going? I don't think it's just propaganda in the universities. I think what we're talking about is real geomagnetic stress. It's altering people's function. And if you're not particularly healthy and you're doing a lot of GMO and you're exposed to a lot of the 2G, 3G, 4G without protection, you're more vulnerable. So, I think it's important to see the little bit bigger picture. I said, onset of neurological problems that come on suddenly, anxiety, depression, and I'm going to say even paranoid schizophrenia.
Yeah. It makes sense when you look at the behavior of the crowds going crazy in the street in cities, and you match that with the work that they're doing in so-called private security companies for ground-based radiation of large numbers of people.
Exactly. That's so basically, on a collective level, it does disrupts the critical thought processing. And that's what you see these crowds. There's no critical thinking. It's just rage and anger. And it doesn't matter, and violence. It's like, very emotionally unstable. Okay. So now there's another thing that goes on, is that it affects calcium ion function, which we need for our cells to work properly, particularly the nervous system, movement of that. So the extremely low ELS affect that. And it also increases permeability of the blood-brain barrier. Now, why is that important? Well, because that blood-brain barrier, when it's working right, protects us from toxins.
Right.
Entering the brain. So if that goes down, we have more toxins entering the brain. Okay? Now, calcium leakage increases the oxidative damage to the system and also helps disrupt and oxidize DNA. So that, again, puts us more towards the oxidative stress, which takes to cancer. Okay? So basically, the lower melatonin means our ability to repair oxidative damage.
Okay.
Is what to our cells and also to our DNA. So those are what I'm going to say are your bigger players in this kind of overall melatonin story. Okay, we're going to go beyond that now, but there's another thing which it creates a modulation which disrupts intercellular communication.
Right.
So it's creating kind of modular wave collusions.
So the cells in your body communicate between each other with very subtle electrical currents, right? This is interfering with that, right?
Yeah, I'm going to use the word modulation because it's a little bit more sophisticated than just currents. It's the modulation of the currents. We are very complicated. We are messing with a very complicated system.
I mean, that's kind of what you see with smart meters, too. It's that the modulation, the amplitude, the time between spikes, all those are at least as important as the current itself.
That's the point.
Okay.
Okay, so as it continues, we begin to limit our access to the Schumann resonance. So we start to create chaos in all the electrical, physiological systems of the total ecology. Plant life, animal life, and human life. Now that's what we're talking about. It disrupts the brain waves because our brain wave works between 8 and 12 hertz. Okay. So now they've upped it with another concept. And I don't know if they're really planning to do it because it was so out of order. When you link 5G with the 60 gigahertz, and our bodies can handle up to 12 gigahertz, as a disruptive factor. But we're talking 60, then it disrupts the frequency of the oxygen molecule. The oxygen molecule is O2. So, and then it has to break down the electrons connecting them. It disrupts that. Well, why is that important? Because it disrupts our ability to absorb oxygen.
Yeah, it basically means there's less oxygen for breathing, right?
Yeah, but we're going to step forward one more. Slow suffocation. So it was consciously used as a weapon to create a slow suffocation for crowd control.
Humanity being the crowd that you're talking about.
Well, also crowd control, as in riots.
Directional weapons, you mean, things like that?
That's right. That's right. So that's important. So literally, you have a crowd, you're beaming all this stuff to them, and their ability to breathe diminishes.
Okay. Right.
So I think there was some pushback about the 60 gigahertz of the 5G combined, because it really would suffocate humanity. So I'm not sure what their carrier wave is, but that is the plan.
Right.
It also limits our ability to absorb vitamin D and melanin, and vitamin D is also super anti-cancer. It's really important to prevent diabetes and so forth. It disrupts the pineal gland too, the magnetite functions of hemoglobin. So we're looking at acute disease, chronic disease, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, depression, suicide, and all disrupting all the Earth ecosystems. So you can see that this didn't start, and it doesn't start with 5G. We are looking at 2, 3, and 4G. We're looking at the rate of suicide for young girls is like increased threefold in the last, I'm going to say, 10 to 20 years.
Right. And you're not just talking about degenerative disease. This would have an impact on susceptibility to infectious disease too, I would think, right?
Right. Because it does suppress the immune system. That's also part of the 5G effect.
Right.
And so it's like, when I add up the whole story, I'm going to read you some of the diseases so you can. This is all in the literature, okay? There's no exaggeration. Right. So we're looking at, hold on a second, alteration of heart rhythms, altered gene expression, altered metabolism, altered stem cell development. Again, they're all footnoted. I have all the footnotes here. If people want, I can send it to you if you want.
Sure.
Increased cancer, increased cardiovascular disease, cognitive impairment, that's what we've been talking about, DNA damage, which obviously increases cancer, impacts general well-being, increases free radicals, creates learning and memory deficits, impairs sperm function and quality, increases miscarriage, creates neurological damage, creates obesity and diabetes. Obviously, I've been mentioning oxidative stress, but also is associated with autism, ADHD, asthma, and altered mental states. I mentioned depression, anxiety, and suicidal tendencies. This is all in the literature, okay? So we have to give it attention. And it harms plant life as well, and ants and birds and forests and frogs and fruit flies and honeybees and insects, mice, plants, rats, trees, and microbes. Everything is affected by the 2, 3, 4, and now 5G, which they estimate will be at least 100 times more detrimental, plus the 2, 3, and 4G is like a wave going out in a circle. Mm-hmm. This is pointed. And so it's more like a laser attack.
Like the Star Trek laser guns or something like that, right? That you'd be shooting at people.
Right. So now, along with this disruption is, of course, the global electric circuit, which I'm talking about. And it affects all the biological rhythms as well. I'm just talking about the 5G and the Schumann resonance being disrupted, but so all the biological rhythms, okay? And they cause, many of the same things. So we are really talking a major league levels of disruption on all of life. That's kind of the bottom line in this discussion. it's just hard to grasp the seriousness of it. Okay, and again, 33,000 scientists as of this year have signed up in protest against it. Okay, now, how about international agreements? I mean, do we have any agreements to protect ourselves from this? The answer is yes. Okay, so I've gone through, believe it or not, and researched all the agreements that are broken, because it's good for people to know that, again, this is not about ignorance.
Right, right.
Very deliberate. So first, you have the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Children. I'm going to quote. States, nations shall undertake to ensure, this is a quote, that the child, to ensure the child such protection and care as is necessary for his or her well-being. Article 3. And 2, to ensure the survival and development of the child. Article 6. And take appropriate measures to combat disease, taking into consideration the dangers and risks of environmental pollution. Article 24. So that's just one convention. They're very clear. I mean, could that be any clearer? Right. That's a United Nations Convention.
And just to make that clear how that works, this is something that member countries sign on to voluntarily, and then once they sign on to it, they're supposedly bound by it, right?
Yeah, that's the theory. Yeah. The Nuremberg Code, 1949.
All right.
Okay? Applies to all experiments on humans. And obviously that includes the deployment of 5G, as the scientist said earlier. This is an experiment on humans. And the key here with Nuremberg, you have to have consent. There is no consent.
Yeah.
So I want to just make a point. In the Nuremberg quote, the voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential, Article 1. So it's pretty clear.
And it can't be consent by hiding the real effects. It has to be informed consent, right?
Right. It has to be informed. No experiment should be conducted where there is an a priori reason to believe that death or disabling injury will occur, Article 5. Now, we've clearly established that, right? I mean, there's no doubt that we got a problem with 25,000 papers. Number 3, Declaration of the United Nations Conference on the Human Environment, 1972. Okay? This quote, the discharge of toxic substances in such quantities or concentrations as to exceed the capacity of the environment to render them harmless must be halted in order to ensure that serious or irreversible damage is not inflicted upon the ecosystems. Principle 6. Right. I mean, this is really clear, and they're really clear violations. We're not exaggerating here. World Charter for Nature, 1982. It's also been violated. Quote, activities which are likely to cause irreversible damage, i.e. 5G, to nature shall be avoided, where the potential adverse effects are not fully understood. The activity should not proceed. Article. Is
this another United Nations thing?
This is the World Charter for Nature.
That's like a separate group from the UN connected to it, but again with voluntary membership of countries.
As far as I understand, and that was in 1982.
Okay.
And then in 1992, we have the Rio Declaration on Environment and Development.
All right.
Remember, people went down to Rio. Okay. And this is also violated. States have, quote, the responsibility to ensure that activities within their jurisdiction or control do not cause damage to the environment of other states. States or of areas beyond limits of national jurisdiction. So that's pretty clear.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that they're allowed to cause damage to their own territory, but not to anybody else. But I guess. But when you put them all together, that covers the world.
Yes. Number 6, the United Nations World Summit on Sustainable Development, 2002.
Right.
And, quote, there is an urgent need to, ... create more effective national and regional policy responses to environmental threats to human health. Paragraph 54.
I'm assuming there's no enforcement provisions for any of this, right?
I can't say that.
Okay. I'm just wondering. I don't know.
But again, all that has to do with a kind of a basic, right? Are we, who's enforcing it? Do we choose?
Exactly. In other words, are these things to pacify the public, or do they have any force behind them?
I believe they were meant with a good intent by concerned people, but when you get a little deeper, the globalist agenda and these come into conflict.
The people in power don't seem to be too worried about breaking these things, in other words.
Yeah, because they have a different agenda.
Right, right.
The UN sounds good, makes everybody happy. The African Convention on the Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, 2017. Now, that's a kind of interesting one. So, I hope to be speaking at the African Union. It's like the European Union and so forth.
What country is that in?
Ethiopia.
Okay.
Addis Ababa.
Right.
Hopefully in November.
Okay.
Here's what they say. It's been violated. The parties shall take all appropriate measures to prevent, mitigate, and eliminate to the maximum extent possible detrimental effects on the environment, in particular from radioactive, toxic, and other hazard substances and waste. So, people are concerned, at a bigger level. They lack the enforcement, which is what you kind of pointed out.
Right. Universal
Declaration of Human Rights. This is Convention number 8 here. Everyone has a right to life, liberty, and security of person. Article 3. That's as clear as you can be.
Right.
United Nations Global Strategy for Women, Children, and Adolescent Health, 2016 to 2030. Has objectives and targets to, quote, transform by expanding and enabling environments to survive. In other words, creating survival in the environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By reducing maternal and newborn mortality, and to thrive by ensuring health and well-being and reducing pollution-related deaths and illness. So this is a solar electromagnetic pollution.
Yeah.
And now we go to outer space. Outer Space Treaty 1967. It requires the use of outer space be conducted to avoid its harmful contamination and adverse changes in the environment of the Earth. Article 9. I don't think you knew there was an outer space treaty.
No, I'm just really being impressed by the fact that what the United Nations puts out in these declarations and policies and agreements sounds wonderful. And if you do dig deeper, like you said, if you find out what the United Nations is actually doing, it's all the opposite. So it's really interesting.
To say the least. The number 11. I used to do peace meditations at the United Nations in the late 90s.
Uh-huh.
And there was some kind of change. We used to be able to use their meditation hall. Mm-hmm. Suddenly we couldn't use that. Suddenly this happened, that happened. Suddenly all these regulations, and it became impossible to simply lead a peace meditation.
Wow, they're afraid of a meditation. That's interesting.
And this is even more important. The main focus of that meditation was the staff at the UN.
Wow.
So our organizers were within the UN staff.
Okay, so they believed in what you were doing, clearly.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's pretty impressive.
Yes.
Okay. Second long outer space issue 2018, the United Nations Guideline for the Long-Term Sustainability of Outer Space Activities, 2018, states and international intergovernmental organizations should address risks to people, property, public health, and the environment associated with the launch in pre-orbit operation and re-entry of the space objects. And these are the guidelines, but you get the idea. We're launching 20,000 satellites. Come on. So really what we're looking at is this is the 5G as it's being orchestrated is a severe planetary violation.
Right.
On every level. Okay. And to me, the biggest thing is its effect on brain and spiritual function. So we can't evolve spiritually and we're easier to enslave. And they hang out this electronic convenience play toy type thing, but that's not important. We're supposed to evolve back to God. That will be, that's what it's temporarily blocking, and keeps us from being aligned with the spiritual teachings in all the great traditions, not just one tradition in the story.
Right.
So that's what we're looking at. It's an effort to dominate and limit consciousness, in essence, decimate the human civilization.
Yeah.
So what can we do?
Very sophisticated. I know this is redundant, but it's just really impressive how they're able to use these declarations like the ones you read as a tool to reassure people that everything's fine. Because look at all these declarations. All these countries have to be following this, and we're watching, so everything's okay. And at the same time, full speed ahead with rolling it all out.
So what can we do? Well, I'm going to do some general suggestions and then some very specific suggestions.
Okay.
How to in your family. So, one, urge all the regulatory agencies, local, national, international, to halt the 5G RF EMFs. Okay? Because of what's going on. Because they're harmful. 2, recommend all the countries with their radiation safety agencies to inform the teachers, the citizens, including teachers, physicians, about the risks of 5G. Just educate people.
Right.
And then 3, recommend all countries prohibit the wireless telecommunications industry through lobbying organizations. Okay. Now that may be a little pie in the sky. I'm not done actually. But the 4th is our own protection. Now, recently, one more second here. Recently, there was this very interesting thing on 5G crisis that was on TV somewhere on the internet. Okay, and there's some things that go out about that I wanted to mention that has some relevance. Okay, what to do. So, first, get people aware. Most people aren't aware. Second, minimize the use of the wireless and go to Ethernet. Literally, in my house, we have no Wi-Fi. And in our office, there's no Wi-Fi. Everything's Ethernet.
Yeah, great.
That makes a difference in that.
And it's not that hard to do, right? You just bring it to where you're going to use the device and put a wire there that you can plug into.
Exactly.
And get rid of devices that can't be hardwired.
Correct. It's really pretty simple.
Yeah.
Deal with the routers, get all that out, and then there are internet cables, Ethernet cables that we're talking about. You just use those.
Yeah.
It's nice to get a meter for testing to see what's going on. That's a reasonable thing to do in the bigger picture. Now, what to do about cell phones? Well, actually, there's Ethernet cables for cell phones as well.
So how does that work? I mean, if you're driving around or walking around, or you don't use it unless you're near a place where you can plug it in or something?
Yeah. So basically, an Ethernet cable is, it plugs into something, and you plug your cell phone into that.
Okay. Yeah.
You know how you have a little thing when you're doing your computer, the little plastic thing to plug in?
Mm-hmm.
You just plug that in, so you're in basically Ethernet line, and then the other end of it plugs into your cell phone.
So your cell phone gets plugged into the computer, basically, right?
Yeah, Ethernet, whatever, how you want to do it.
Okay, yeah. Okay. And that is against the, versus the convenience that you're sold that you just walk anywhere and instantly use your cell phone. You have to decide which one's more important, right?
Right. I mean, here's the thing that's kind of cool. You want to minimize your exposure. So, sure, you can carry it, you can use it, but generally, where are you using your cell phone most? That's where you want an Ethernet cable to plug into your cell phone.
Okay, so these are like computer, what they call VoIP protocols, voice over internet protocol, where you can have a phone connected to the internet instead of using it on Wi-Fi or on regular cell phone signals.
Right. And then one of the other problems is, which I haven't figured out yet, but I will, solar panel inverters. So at the Tree of Life, we are totally off the grid. I mean, we're getting some batteries, but we're totally off the grid.
Uh-huh.
It's all solar. Our well pump is solar. Everything is solar.
Okay.
But it turns out that inverters tend to attract these kind of, create EMF fields.
Yeah, because it's changing DC to alternating current, right?
Yeah.
Creating a lot of dirty electricity.
Right, and I don't know how to do that. There's things out there for dirty electricity. I mean, we have them in the house. I don't know. I mean, these things that clean your wires. But I have to be honest, I don't know the mechanisms of that. They exist. Now, I also have run across a little card which I wear, which is a woven copper card with a certain EMF protective field. It's just this big, if you can see it. I don't know.
We can see it, right.
The size of a credit card.
Okay.
But it's your life credit. Okay?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I got it.
And I did a little video where I literally started at 125 yards away from the 5G tower and walked right up to it, and at no point was I weakened.
Huh, okay. And you did it with and without the protection to compare,
yes.
Or not? Okay.
Yes. Well, I had also other people, too, who were all made weak at about 100 yards.
Okay. Yeah, because normally you don't want to get around those things at all.
Yeah, but you got to experiment. And
find out what happens.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I walked right up within 10 feet, and I was unaffected.
Wow.
No change. So this quantum card is something that I see, wow, that's a really good thing to wear. It's really, really simple. It's really, it's the size of a credit card. It takes no technological ability whatsoever, except the weight on your body, either in the hara point, 3 fingers below your belly button, or in your lower back, or kind of over your thymus area. And so that is the thing you can do that would allow you to walk around and be relatively less affected by 5G.
Okay.
People can get that at the Tree of Life. They can go to drcousens.com, which is my website, or treeoflifefoundation.us, which
Okay.
is foundation, and they can get these quantum cards.
Okay. Neat.
And the little seal I have, the EMF protective seal. I have it on my cell phones. I have it on my computers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're doing.
Okay.
We use a Tachyon disc also, but in specific for 5G, 2, 3, 4, and 5G, these are very specific for that.
Okay. Okay. Neat.
Fortunately, it's a proprietary thing, and so I don't know. I don't know the technology of how they do it.
Okay.
It said they're beaming the frequencies of all nature's 7 healers.
Well, it comes down to whether it works. If it does, you don't have to know every detail of how.
Yeah. But that's why I walked up to the 5G cell tower.
Yeah.
And had myself tested, and had other people tested. I did it with 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did a little video. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's okay. We're willing to walk into the fire and see what happens. So,
You said you put that on video?
yes.
Where's that watchable?
Well, that's why you need to go to drcousens.com
Okay.
or treeoflifefoundation.us, and it shows up there. I'm a little weak at it. We put it up on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not that computer literate, unfortunately, to be able to tell you.
Well, that's okay. People can go to those sites and see it. That's good.
Yeah, they can be guided and see it. Yeah. So that's good. I will actually check with my assistant to see what's the best way to tell people to get there. I know a lot of people have seen it, but I'm not sure how they get it. But we did put it up on Facebook, and it's probably under Dr. Cousens on the Facebook.
It's really interesting. You mentioned the prayer that you were leading people in at the UN that would have a positive effect on the staff working in the UN. And
but it was for the staff. Staff were the main participants.
Okay, but it was to affect them, including all the levels above them as well, right?
Yes.
Not just the lower level employees.
Yes.
And apparently the organizations, whoever was in charge, gave you their seal of approval that they really liked it and believed it worked, and that's why they banned it, which brings up another whole area of protection. Because if they're agreeing that would do it, something worth really going into, right?
It's a long story of who's behind the UN that will take us into a different story.
Okay, no, I don't mean to do that, but just.
But it's not a who's behind it is the same forces that are the globalists that are behind this kind of demonic action that with the 5G.
Right. I wasn't saying in terms of identifying them. I was saying in terms of the fact that they're looking at subtle radiation that's positive, that, not all radiation is bad, and that humans are capable of bringing in this radiation that's counteracting that and overcoming it. And They were apparently agreeing with that that's true.
Yes. And that's why essentially they kept creating more and more rules that even their own staff couldn't participate.
Yeah.
And we're doing it just on each equinox and solstice, kind of Peace 21.
That's all you were doing, just 4 times a year, and that's it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of proof that actually has significant effects on the global brain.
So you could just keep doing it, but do it privately.
Yeah.
Right.
We actually have, I haven't spent as much time as I need to, but we were at one point had 183 different nations involved. So, it takes it's hard to keep people up. Well, all we did is we basically set it at 7 p.m. wherever your time zone is on the 21st. Okay, the equinox solstice could be the 22nd, 21st, or 23rd, right? 20th, 21st, 22nd. So we just said, here's the time to do it, 7 p.m., wherever you are in the world. So it was creating a worldwide frequency at 7 p.m.
So there's one of those events coming up because we're about to have what they call an equinox, right?
And that's correct.
And
we have been doing this since 1984. So what you looked in the calendar, what date is it? You just look for the 21st.
Yeah.
What was it?
Yeah, well, as far as the equinox goes, the according to this calendar, it's very interesting because I would have guessed the 21st, but this one says it's the 23rd this year. And
okay. You can be within 3 days. That's the point.
Our plan right now, we're recording this, of course, and our plan is to broadcast it on the 22nd. So one day before the equinox. And anybody that wants to could do something on that day, right? If you tell them what to do.
You could move it back one day and get it on the 21st so people could meditate that day.
Yeah, yeah. And do you want to give some idea of what kind of meditation that is or how that works?
So what we basically do is it's a half-hour meditation. And for the first 25 minutes, we just get people's minds to get quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And we visualize and people can do it different ways, but a network of light, a circle of a sphere of light around the whole globe, of triangles of light.
Uh-huh.
And then we beam down from that big circle of people outside the Earth. We're kind of surrounded the Earth.
Yeah.
We beam down to Washington, D.C., to Moscow, to here, there, all the different places, to the whole living planet, to all the plant life, all the animal life, the dolphins and the whales, everything. So everyone is included with the frequency of peace. This has been proven to work.
Right. I mean, just letting people know this is not just imaginary, silly stuff. This is real. That's why they agreed and banned it at the UN. People, the intent is very, very powerful. If it's focused and not distracted. And do you have some kind of a guided lesson in it or something that people in different parts of the world could watch?
The answer is kind of yes and no. I have not put something up on the internet. I probably should. I've given these guided meditations, and part of me is very likes people to be independent. But let me just tell you how powerful it is.
Okay.
So, 200 meditators in 73 went in, not 73, but that long ago.
Okay.
Went into Rhode Island, and they meditated an hour twice a day, just in general, not in specific. And the crime rate over the summer, like over the 3 months, went down 43%. 43%. Now, people thought that's a fluke, so they came back the next year, and the crime rate went down 49%. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. We know our data has shown that, not my data, but the research, people have researched it up, have shown that when we do the equinox and solstice, which are very powerful generation times, that literally it decreases the number of sunspots. And some higher sunspots are associated with more, emotional mental disorder.
Right.
So it's been shown to decrease the number of sunspots, when those meditations are happening compared to when they weren't happening. Because you can go back and check all these things, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And when they've done it in different countries, they've done it in the Middle East, again, the violence rate went down, significantly. When they did it with 1% of the population in a variety of places around the world, 1%, there was a 16% drop in crime rate.
Wow.
So no question it works. They've done some research where they're actually able to trace when people are doing this and how it affects the global mind, global brain.
Right.
So We are one. We do make a difference. What the Bible says, what the Torah says is 5 will chase away 100, 100 will chase away, and 100 will chase away 10,000. So there's some mathematics that has to do with the square of the number.
It doesn't just mean in a sword fight, right? I mean, that's really significant for general positive change.
That's right. It's the, it's the mental state. The consciousness is what they're expressly talking about.
Yeah, you don't need everybody to participate consciously.
We can get between 1% or the square root of 1% can change the global mind. And that's really the key teaching here. We don't need a lot of people. Let's say we need 9,000 people, square root of 1% of the population.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so these meditations shifted. We created a Peace Every Day initiative where we encourage everybody to meditate at sunrise every morning, and add that visualization of world peace.
Right. No, I think, we're meant to believe that it's just calms you down and makes you feel like you're doing something, but in the real world it does nothing. And in reality, it's the opposite. Everybody's intent being totally scattered allows the chaos to keep going.
That's right.
Right.
We're focalizing the positive intent.
Yeah. And it sounds like an experiment in resonance, really, because you're setting up a harmonic resonance in the people that do this, and everybody else being totally scattered and unconsciously subject to all these influences, not just 5G, but all the others. And so the ones that are coherent are much more powerful, and a small number can change the bigger number.
Correct.
Right.
That's exactly it. And there's lots of evidence for it. Lots of evidence.
Yeah. I haven't seen it on the news lately, but I think it's absolutely true. Well, okay. Basically, what you're outlining is that the rollout of all of this intensified wireless technology, including and culminating in 5G, or like some of the people who don't really understand what's going on, such as the U.S. president in this area, saying, all right, we're ready for 6G. All that's being rolled out intentionally to cause harm, not just risk, but damage. And that it's in clear violation of a lot of international agreements to which most countries, including the U.S. and most of the others, have voluntarily said that they will follow them, and they're not following them. And it's not being stopped at this point. So you're saying there are two levels, if I understand you right, on which to work to improve the situation. One is, it's good to have these scientists and everybody else signing the agreement, signing the petitions, and talking about it, informing other people, that sort of thing. But in order to not have to wait indefinitely for that to reach enough people, there are things that a small minority can do starting now, both to protect themselves, their families, and also by this silent resonant effect, which is very powerful to affect the rest of the population. And that's something that should be done like right now, right? And as long as necessary. I mean, it's a thing that we could keep doing indefinitely, because it's not only to counteract 5G, it's generally to spread harmony and a different kind of inspiration through humanity that could change the future.
So that, in a sense, people have misused technology in multiple ways,
right,
whatever. And God has given us some power, or a 1% or square root of 1% of the population, to positively affect consciousness. That's just...
Yeah. I mean, 1%, if there's about 7 billion people in the world right now, or a little more, 1% of that is 70 million. So you'd have to, for your formula, you'd need the square root of 70 million. I don't offhand know what that is, but 70 million has 7 zeros in it. Square roots usually cut the zeros in half. So it's still quite a few people, but that might not be an absolute, numerical requirement, that the general idea is that a small number could work as even really small if the consciousness is very focused, right? And so the number may be a bit flexible, which is good.
I don't have a way to do it this moment, but think 70 million and just take the square root of that. Let's think 100 million and take the square root. That's 10 million. Okay.
Yeah. So, well, no, it's actually less than that, because 10 million times 10 million has 12 zeros in the answer. So it's actually quite a bit smaller. And that's encouraging, right? It's a really good thing.
1 million, okay? Just for discussion.
Square root of a million is 1,000, as far as I know, right? Because 1,000 times 1,000 is a million.
Okay, so that probably gets us down to 10,000.
Yeah, I mean, and it really it sounds like it could be even smaller.
Okay.
You know,
but I'll say 10,000. Okay.
Okay.
That's still not a lot. If everybody chose to meditate on the truth, at a certain time at sunrise every day.
Exactly. I mean, you're reaching more people than that now. And so if a significant number of them decided it might be worth trying, then that you could be at your number.
Yeah.
So we should do a half-hour guided session, so that people don't feel like they have to figure it out. They just show up and do it with you online. Okay, so I think we've covered a lot, and the objective here is not to make it as complicated as possible. It's really just the opposite. Make it accessible, easy for everybody to take part. And
there's a piece that I don't understand, and maybe it's a rumor. We talked about getting the 6G.
Yeah.
Now here's what I understand, and I want to just say it's a little speculative, but 6G may be far less harmful, and that's what Trump is talking about. Because
what is it? I don't even know what it is.
Well, G means generation.
Yeah.
And apparently they need a 5G laser network to create 6G, because it's carrier. You need two things: the quantum computer, which we can't do without 5G. So it could be that what he understands, because he's pretty smart, it's got IQ of 154, it could be what he's understanding is that then once that network, so we can move the 6G, and actually everybody will be much better.
Well, then he'll have to kill 5G before it kills everybody else, right?
I understand that. Mm-hmm. So I don't know just what he knows or doesn't know. And I'm hearing it could be rumors. So rumors are a problem like this, because, we just got to get to 5G to get to 6G.
That doesn't sound like a good plan to me. I mean, I know there are people that are saying
doesn't sound like a good
the president is aware of everything, and this is all part of a really good plan and everything, but he just signed an executive order a couple months ago to make it easy to put out more GMOs and stuff like that indicate he may not know everything.
Well, I'm going to use the word understand everything.
Understand everything, yeah.
And he thinks in terms of business.
Yeah.
And he's not so obviously dietarily focused.
Yeah, well, unless you define it really broadly to include Diet Coke as a major element of the food groups and stuff like that.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So I get that he doesn't have that, because of his diet and everything. The best I know about his diet is he's not an example of the optimal diet.
Well, and I don't think it's bad intent, because he's not trying to hurt himself by doing that. He just has a built-in trust that I don't think he realizes the implications of great companies that may be totally deadly and toxic, but they're great companies, employ a lot of people, very successful. And some of those are fast food companies. and they're obviously great. And so, what they're putting out poison? I don't think he knows that.
Right.
I don't think he'd eat it.
Who understands that?
Right. Hopefully that will change.
I don't like to speculate on what he does or doesn't know. I'll just put it that way. In general, I think he has an anti-globalist position.
Yeah, I totally agree. In fact, he said it verbatim. It's just that the sophistication of the levels of that, I think they're trying really hard for him not to understand.
I agree. And but the bigger picture is like, well, okay, but at least someone's standing up.
Well, yeah, I mean, the attitude of wanting to help the country is why they want him dead. And I think that's a wonderful thing, and everything else can be added. And part of what could make a person in that position more receptive is exactly what you're talking about. Because the effect of the meditation, if it's coherent and organized, is not limited by distance or who you're talking about.
Exactly. It shifts the overall brain. Now, so I'm just going to add a little point here.
Good.
So people have raised the question when I talk about it. Well, isn't that black magic?
Okay.
So black magic is an intent to cause harm, number one. It's usually an intent at a person. Okay? And
to hurt them, yeah.
Yeah, at an individual. And this is very different. This is an attempt to do good, and it's for the general frequency. So that's how it's not black magic.
It's kind of how the sun affects the earth. I mean, the sun's not trying to take away your freedom. It's giving you wonderful energy. Anybody who wants to use it can. And it's the same thing.
But this increases people's desire to want to use it.
Right. But that's in line with the life force. It's not working against it, right?
So that's why I just make a point.
It's good that you clarify it. Because sometimes if people are still really based in fear, anything they don't understand becomes black magic. You know, you've seen this happen with Aboriginal tribes that are shown a transistor radio or something. It must be from the devil because they have no idea how it could possibly work. And it's just, there are laws of nature we don't totally know about at this point.
Yeah, so I'm just making a point. Good.
Yeah, that's great. And in the meantime, it's kind of an encouragement to people to go through your house, get rid of the Wi-Fi out of your house and office. And people have written to me, like from the UK recently, and said this lady was having terrible physical symptoms because she agrees with everything that you would have just said, but she is in an apartment without a lot of money, and on the other side of the wall from her bed are like 12 smart meters. And by sleeping there, her whole body's on fire. And she slept in some other places in other people's houses and feels fine and comes back there. Those people almost have to find a way to move, right?
They have to move, not find a way. Their life is at stake.
Yeah. And I don't know of any device that you can put on the wall to negate all those smart meters at the moment. There may be one.
You know, the quantum card plays a role. The smart meters aren't in her control. That's the problem. There's screens you can put over them. That goes on and on. But the best thing, it's got to move.
Yeah.
Life's risk.
Yeah, exactly. So, and because everybody can't move out of the cities immediately, very, practically, we need to do whatever we can to give them tools to work with where they are for the moment, too.
And moving to another apartment is the minimum.
That's a good start, right? Okay, well, that's a lot to digest, and I think enough to change people's life quality if they absorb it. So
this is good. It's always a joy to work with you. I appreciate the good work you're doing in the world. It's really divine service, so I just want to honor that.
Yeah, I feel the same way with what you're doing, and we just want ways to be more effective and to, help more. And I know that the potential of light and people having good intent for general healing instead of deciding who they want to fight and who they're against and all this stuff, that the potential for that harmonic energy is much higher than anything destructive. So it's all about how can we open up to that so that we're operating at full capacity. Right.
Perfect.
That's, I think, what you're talking about. So,
yeah.
Okay. Well, you'll be back shortly, and hang on, and we'll say goodbye in the break here and decide what to do next.
Okay. Blessings.
So,
very good.
Thank you. Okay. So,
everyone who's listened to this,
yes.
may you all be blessed that you can be in an inspiration to help wake up the world and return to the truth of who you are, return to the divine.
Yeah, and know that the reason that you're told that you're helpless and insignificant is because the opposite is true.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay. Amen. Take care.
Okay, guys, that was Dr. Gabriel Cousens. I hope you got a lot out of that. I definitely did. And I'm always really impressed with how prepared and organized he is for these show appearances. It's really striking and appreciated, and everything backed up and referring to all these documents that he's gone through. And he does an amazing amount of study, and he's got projects going on in countries all over the world, as well as things still happening at Tree of Life in Arizona, and pretty amazing. And he's, as far as I'm aware, he's living everything that he's talking about, which makes it much more impressive to me anyway. So I appreciate him taking the time out. His schedule is overwhelming, and so it was really good fortune to have him on the show. And I think the bottom line that he's talking about is, he would agree, take care of your health. He knows that although I'm totally into live food, that I'm not a vegan because I use raw milk, and he hasn't excommunicated me yet for that. It's become a really great friendship, and we're trying to help each other as much as possible. So that's a gift to everybody. And he's saying the 5G has to be stopped, and the other versions of the wireless that precede it need to be rolled back for the sake of not just humans, which are important enough, but also all life forms on the planet. Even plants and trees are negatively affected by the wireless junk. It's a kind of very, very toxic smog that most people still aren't aware of because you can't see it or touch it or smell it or anything. There are people that are very sensitive to it. They're called electromagnetically sensitive, but they just can feel it, consciously. It doesn't mean nobody else is affected. Everybody's affected, and it's not some kind of mistake that they're rolling it out. It's on purpose. So it really is a question of consciousness, because the people behind it at the very top levels of the power structure, they intend to destroy life. That's what it's for. It's totally successful. It's not a mistake. It's not a failure. It's a success. And the only way to really change what they're doing is to encourage a change of consciousness, which changes motivation. And I don't think you're going to do that by open debates or sending them letters. I'm not against doing that because there's good energy in that, but I've had a lot of face-to-face conversations and letter writing and petition signing and stuff like that, and it hasn't slowed them down at all. And what Dr. Cousens is talking about, even though it seems, with the programming that we've gotten, that things like meditation and prayer and unseen things have no power, I don't think that's true. As Dr. Cousens has said, it's been documented in scientific journals even, which try to avoid anything true to a large extent, but even they are full of studies that show prayer and meditation and emotional and mental intent to have something happens really has an energy to it. And as he was pointing out in what he said about black magic, it's not some really complicated, confusing, esoteric definition of what makes it dark instead of light. It's is it for hurting people or not? It's really simple, If it's a nasty energy that's meant to trick people and fool them and hurt them and kill them, then who cares whether it fits any definition? That's definitely dark type of effort that's going on, whether you call it magic or not. It doesn't change what it is. And something to help people and spread light and help them and make their life better, and not by taking away their free will, but by just sharing universal healing energy that everybody's already living by. Even the bad guys that don't appreciate it are dependent on it too. So if we become open conduits of that, it's about the best service that we can possibly do at the same time as all the physical work that we try to put with it. In the meantime, he's reminding us get rid of Wi-Fi technology out of your house and office. And if you're in an impossible situation like the lady we talked about with the sleeping 1 inch away from a bank of smart meters on the other side of the wall, it's like, to paraphrase what the Terminator said, if you want to live, come with me, or move. Don't stay in that bed in that apartment because it's not good for you, and it's destroying your body, so you may not want to stay there. But there are other things to use, and we've used the Rest Shield with great effect. In fact, I don't want to drag this out long, but I have to mention that the new cars are really bad for EMF generation. They've got wireless technology all through the car. Even when things are turned off, they're probably like sensors for the air in the tires and everything else you can imagine. And I took Ken Rolla's Rest Shield, which I'm not getting paid to tell you this, and I got an adapter to plug into the cigarette lighter, or whatever they call them politically correctly these days, because I don't know what it's called. But anyway, I plugged it into that, and I felt refreshed and fine after a 12-hour drive in a rented brand new car with horrible EMF, and made a huge difference. So you might want to look at that. It's kind of expensive. It's, I think, like $400 or something, but it's definitely doing something positive. That's at freshandalive.com. Other than that, I think we've covered most of what we need to say. If you're interested in Planetary Healing Club, that's the private group that is working on really intense inner work for the change of their own quality of life, physical health, and everything else. That meets on Saturdays, and access is through planetaryhealingclub.com. And we're live every week, interactive on that, working on things that are on a little bit deeper level than what we can openly talk about on the public shows. So you're welcome there. We'll keep making it the public videos during the week as much as we can. If you have the means to help us stay on the air and doing our work and eventually building the school, please consider supporting us on our new Subscribestar page, which is subscribestar.com/Lost Arts Radio. And any help from, if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, please don't do it. But people that have access to money that is somewhat discretionary to help work like this go on, it would be greatly appreciated. And you can get out of it whenever you want. It's a totally voluntary thing, and there are things that come back to you, which you can read about on that page. I think that's pretty much everything. And remember to stay in touch at lostartsradio.com, our main site, and get on the mailing list there, just in case we get deleted from the internet, which is always a possibility depending on what happens politically. And get on our mailing list, because we're not using it right now, but we will use it if it's the only way we have to reach you, and that way we maintain contact instead of just completely losing touch with you. Also, Brighteon.com, it's a new non-censoring platform for videos, and the way that it grows is to use it. So if you get a chance to watch videos on Brighteon.com, it's BRIGHTEON.com, and our channel there is Brighteon.com/channel/Lost Arts Radio, and that really helps Mike's new site get widespread and known to more people, so that's really helpful. I think that's about it. Sorry for being so long tonight, but there was a lot of stuff to share with you, and great event to have Dr. Cousens on the show. I wish there were more doctors that were awake like that. I hope that he's going to transfer his attitude to as many medical personnel and doctors and people in other sciences as possible, as well as the rest of us. It would be a great thing for the future. So have a great week. Thanks for spending the time with us, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Email any comments or ideas, anything you want to share, feedback to richard@lostartsradio.com. We read all of those and we'll implement them as possible. Have a good week, and we'll see you next time.